It began with a single student, staying seated. The gym was packed. Flags lined the walls. Parents filled the bleachers, holding phones ready to capture their children's big moment at Lincoln High's annual Academic and Athletic Awards Assembly. On stage, the principal adjusted the mic. The marching band stood by. And in the crowd of students on the floor, everyone stood for the national anthem. Everyone except one. Rough 4-seat 11. A teenage boy, lanky, quiet, unfamiliar to most, sat with his hands folded in his lap. His head was slightly bowed, his expression unreadable. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Teachers exchanged glances. One assistant coach narrowed his eyes. A few students giggled uncomfortably, nudging one another. Is he serious? Who does he think he is? Some thought maybe he didn't hear the cue. Others thought it was just some kind of rebellious act, teenage drama for attention. But he didn't move. He didn't look defiant. He didn't seem proud. He just sat still and silent as the anthem echoed off the gym walls. Afterward, tension clung to the air. As students sat back down, the principal made no comment. But murmurs continued. Teachers whispered among themselves. A PTA mom shook her head. A few students looked over at the boy, like he'd committed treason. That boy's name was Noah King, a 17-year-old junior. Not on the football team, not in any clubs, just a quiet face in the crowd. Until now, after the ceremony, things escalated quickly. By lunchtime, someone had posted a blurry video of Noah sitting during the anthem with the caption, "Guess who thinks he's too good to stand for the flag?" It spread across the school like wildfire. Students started calling him names in the hallway. A teacher asked him coldly if he needed a reminder of the privileges this country gives him. The cafeteria got quiet when he walked in, but Noah said nothing. Not that day, not the next, not even when his locker was covered in tiny flags, taped all over it, with the words, "Try standing next time," scribbled in red Sharpie. Still, silence, until Friday. That morning, students filed into the gym again, this time for the senior scholarship announcements. Noah was there, same row, same seat. And when the anthem began once more, everyone turned to look at him. Whispers turned into silence, because he stood, but not in the way anyone expected. Noah slowly stood up, then unzipped his hoodie and turned to face the crowd. Gasps echoed across the gym, because underneath his jacket, he wore a plain white t-shirt. But drawn across the front, in bold black letters, were the words, "My brother died in uniform. Then they deported his wife." You could have heard a pin drop. The anthem kept playing, but all eyes were locked on him. Noah didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stood staring straight ahead, his face calm, his shirt speaking louder than any words ever could. And in that moment, the story changed. The boy who had been mocked became the one everyone was finally listening to. The moment Noah revealed the shirt, the gym froze in stunned silence. Even the band faltered notes, wavering, then falling silent mid-anthem. The principal caught mid-step toward the podium, stopped cold. Teachers glanced at each other in disbelief. Phones once used to record awards and cheerful clapping were now raised again, capturing this new moment. A different kind of attention. The words on Noah's shirt hit like a punch to the chest. My brother died in uniform. Then they deported his wife. No one spoke. Noah didn't explain, didn't wave, didn't cry. He simply zipped his hoodie back up, sat down again, in the same quiet way he had all week, and folded his hands in his lap. The assembly stumbled forward. Names were called. Scholarships were awarded. But the applause was awkward and hollow. No one could stop thinking about what they'd just seen. Afterward, as students filtered into the hallway, a heavy hush replaced the usual post-assembly chatter. That afternoon, the school buzzed not just with rumors, but with questions. Wait, what happened to his brother? Was it true? Did they really deport his wife? The answers trickled out slowly. Noah's older brother, Daniel King, had been a U.S. Marine. He'd enlisted right out of high school, served 2 tours in the Middle East, and was awarded a Purple Heart posthumously after his convoy was ambushed overseas. His funeral had been quiet, his name etched into a local memorial stone that most students had walked past without ever noticing. But Daniel had a wife, Sophia. She was a nursing student born in Honduras who came to the U.S. on a student visa when she was 14. She met Daniel in college. They got married, but immigration paperwork dragged on endlessly. After Daniel's death, her case fell apart. 2 months after she buried her husband in Arlington, Sophia was deported. Noah had watched the whole thing happen, silently, powerlessly. One day he had an older brother and a sister-in-law who made Sunday pancakes and laughed about baby names. The next, he had folded flags and empty bedrooms. He never forgot. He just didn't know how to say any of it. So when students called him a traitor, when teachers stared coldly, when even his friends asked why he wouldn't just respect the flag, he stayed quiet. Because he didn't want pity. He didn't want attention. He wanted them to think. And now, they were. That evening, a local news anchor, already tipped off by a student's video, ran a short segment, "High Schooler Sits Out Anthem," to protest brothers' widows' deportation. The clip showed Noah standing with the shirt. The camera zoomed in on the words. The comments online exploded. Some praised him for his bravery. Others called him disrespectful, entitled, even ungrateful. But Noah didn't care, because for the first time, his brother's story wasn't buried beneath folded flags and silence. It was heard, and somewhere across the border, in a small apartment in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, Sophia King watched the clip on her cracked phone screen and wept. By Monday, the school was no longer just a high school. It had become a lightning rod. News vans parked across from the front office. Students walked past protesters, some holding signs that read, "Respect our flag," and others with "Listen to Noah," chalked across cardboard. Teachers were pulled into emergency meetings, and Principal Harris was swamped with media requests, community complaints, and district calls about how the school planned to handle the situation. But through it all, Noah walked the halls like he always had, quiet, calm, alone. That morning he found a note, slipped into his locker, folded anonymous. Inside it read, "I'm sorry I judged you, but I'm listening now." Noah tucked it into his pocket without a word. Later in English class, his teacher, Mrs. Halston, paused before starting the day's lesson. She looked across the room and said, "Before we begin, I want to thank someone here. Noah, thank you for reminding us that stories matter." Some students clapped. A few stayed silent, but nobody mocked him anymore. That night, Noah's mom sat across from him at the kitchen table. The dishes were done, the TV was off, and the weight of the past few days settled between them like fog. "I didn't want you to go through all this," she said. "You've already lost so much." Noah stared at his glass of water. "I couldn't sit anymore, Mom. Not without saying something." "I know," she whispered. There was a long pause. Then she added, "Daniel would be proud." Noah's throat tightened. They both sat there quietly, grief and strength intertwined in the silence. Meanwhile, across town, a lawyer who specialized in immigration cases watched Noah's story on a local segment and paused the video. "Daniel King," she murmured, pulling up records. She found the military file, the marriage certificate, to the visa applications, and the flagrant errors that led to Sophia's deportation. Her jaw tightened. This shouldn't have happened. She picked up her phone. Within 2 days, she was on a call with Sophia, and within a week, she was filing a motion to reopen Sophia's case on humanitarian grounds, with media attention, public support, and new documentation all working in their favor. Back at school, Noah was called into the principal's office, but it wasn't what he expected. Principal Harris leaned forward and said, "I've been in this job for 22 years. I've watched hundreds of kids walk through these halls, say their pledges, sing the anthems. But what you did took more courage than any flag ceremony I've ever seen." Noah didn't respond. The principal continued, "You didn't disrespect this country. You reminded us what it should stand for." He then handed Noah a sealed envelope. Inside, an invitation to speak at the upcoming Veterans Day Assembly, not as a rebel, but as a representative of his brother's legacy. Noah stared at it for a moment. "I don't know if I'm the right person." The principal said, "You already proved you are." Veterans Day came faster than Noah expected. The gym looked completely different now. The stage was decorated in red, white, and blue. Rows of chairs lined the floor, filled with students, teachers, and local veterans who had been invited as honored guests. A banner stretched above the stage, honoring service, understanding sacrifice. Noah sat in the front row. His heart raced. This time people were looking at him, not with confusion or judgment, but with curiosity, even admiration. It was uncomfortable. He never asked for attention, but his story had grown bigger than him. Principal Harris walked to the podium. "Today we are not just here to celebrate those who served, but to understand the cost of service and the voices we often miss." He nodded toward Noah. "I'd like to welcome one of our own, a student who reminded us that patriotism is not blind, it's brave." Noah stood slowly. The applause was soft, but respectful. He stepped up to the mic, staring out at a sea of faces, classmates, teachers, strangers in uniform, and 3 empty chairs where his brother and sister-in-law should have been. He took a breath. "My name is Noah King. Some of you only noticed me a few weeks ago when I didn't stand for the anthem. I didn't sit to disrespect the flag. I sat because I needed someone to ask why." The gym was silent. My brother Daniel wore that flag on his shoulder. He died serving this country. But after he was gone, his wife Sophia was deported. Not because she broke the law, not because she didn't love this country, but because someone somewhere lost the paperwork. Because they stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a number. Noah's voice shook slightly, but he didn't stop. "I sat because this country took my brother's life and then took his wife's future. And I couldn't keep standing like everything was okay." He paused, then looked straight into the audience. "But I also believe in what this country can be. I believe in the people who saw me and listened. I believe in the students who came up to me and said, 'I didn't know, but I care now.' That's why I'm standing today. Not for a perfect country, but for a better one." Silence. Then applause. It started small, but grew real, sustained applause. Veterans nodded, students clapped. Even a few teachers wiped their eyes. Later, as the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, Noah was approached by a tall woman in a navy suit. She introduced herself as part of the governor's office. "We saw your speech," she said, "and I wanted you to know we're looking into your sister-in-law's case. I think we can help." Noah blinked. "Really?" She smiled. "Stories like yours change things, Noah. Sometimes more than protests or policy ever could." That evening he called Sophia. They spoke in slow English and soft Spanish. Noah still learning, Sophia still grieving. But this time their voices were stronger. There was hope in them. "I saw the video," she whispered. "Your brother would be so proud of you." Noah closed his eyes. "I hope so. I miss you." "We miss you." She didn't say anything for a second. Then, "Maybe I'll be home soon." 3 weeks later, Noah stood nervously at Gate 17 of the city airport, clutching a small bouquet of white lilies, Sophia's favorite. The terminal was packed with holiday travelers, but for him, time moved differently. Every second felt heavy. Every announcement, every roll of suitcase wheels across the tile, every blinking number on the arrivals board. And then she stepped through. Thin, tired, her brown eyes wide with disbelief. But she was there, in person, in the same place where Noah had once waited, clutching Daniel's folded flag. Sophia, he breathed. She dropped her bag, and they embraced tight and trembling. Noah didn't cry. He'd done that too many times already. But his voice cracked when he said, "Welcome home. Thank you," she whispered, burying her face in his shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on me." A crowd had gathered nearby, quietly watching. A few clapped. One airport worker wiped her eyes. None of them knew the full story, but somehow in that hug, they understood everything. Later, back at the house, Sophia stood in what used to be hers and Daniel's room. Nothing had changed the framed photo of their wedding. The books she left behind the corner, where Daniel's medals still rested in a shadow box. "I didn't think I'd ever see this again," she said. Noah stood beside her. "A lawyer saw your story. She took the case. Then others started calling. It was never just me." Sophia looked over. "No, Noah. It was you. You could have stayed quiet. You could have stood and blended in. But you made them listen." He nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. In truth, he never wanted to be the center of a movement. He just wanted his family back, and in some small way, he got that. That night, Sophia made dinner. They sat at the old kitchen table, the one that used to be too small when Daniel was alive, and the house was full of laughter. Now, it felt a little less empty. The next morning, a letter arrived. It was from the school district. Inside was an official request. They wanted to include Noah's Veterans Day speech as part of the new curriculum in every local high school under a new elective program titled Voices of Courage. Noah read it twice, then handed it to Sophia. "You think I should say yes?" he asked. She looked at him. "You already said yes the day you stood up by sitting down." He smiled. From that day on, the students at Lincoln High no longer judged patriotism by who stood during the anthem. Instead, they asked why people stood and why some chose not to. And in time they understood that honoring a country doesn't mean ignoring its flaws. It means speaking up, even when your voice shakes. It means protecting what's right, even when others stay silent. And it means knowing that sometimes the most powerful message in the room comes from the one who never raised their voice.